All right, it is the sixth day of August, 2024. We are in the JP courtroom at the Ramsey County Courthouse, and I call this budget workshop to order. At this time, we're going to hear from citizens to be heard.
We didn't do a roll call.
Oh, roll call, sorry.
Commissioner Cheney,
Here.
Commissioner Castleline,
Here.
Commissioner Russo, here, Commissioner Dupnick,
Here.
Judge Garza.
Here, we've got a full court. Now we'll hear citizens be heard. First up, Mr. Patrick.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. I don't know when you guys had, I know you had this yesterday and I was not here, but I'm not sure when you're discussing hot tax. My only concern is, I know, Judge, you were privy to a meeting last week with the city. They're looking at combining all the marketing dollars that they give all the entities. So whether that be Art Center, Rockport Fulton Chamber, the Maritime Museum, all these entities that receive their hot tax. It kind of agrees with the plan to pull that money together. City was going to look at hiring somebody in-house for this coming year to basically navigate this, spend the money, hot tax money through this entity, through this third party. The person they would hire would be some top-notch individual that, of course, would have years of experience. Their salary would be paid through the hot tax. They would go in, buy the media buys on behalf of all the entities that have events or we market our area. So the things that we have done in the past is the chamber gets the money, chamber goes in, takes a 20-something% cut of their admin fees, and then the rest of it gets spent. I think it's similar things go on with other entities that receive funds, and I'm sure the funds that the county disperses, similar things are happening. The entities take an admin fee, the rest goes to marketing. And I think pulling this together, I think makes better sense to have one individual within the city. And if the county can get on board of like supporting them and maybe putting the funds that you give out for marketing purposes to either the art center, the chamber, or what have you, and pulling those marketing funds strictly to this new entity. The entity would be, of course, through a 5-member board is what the city's proposing. They haven't, this is of course just in discussion, nothing's been done yet tonight. So I think another meeting that the city's having, but Judge Garza was in this meeting last week with some of the entities that receive hot funds for Rockport, city of Rockport. So I think I'm in agreement. Craig Griffin here is also in agreement. Us hotels have, kind of looked at this as, and I chaired TDC years ago. And the answer.
Explain what TDC is for those.
Tourism Development Committee. It's part of the chamber. When I chaired it, we would do these marketing workshops and then we would have Helen Thompson or, I think that's who's been the 20 years or so that I've been involved, or 18 years. It's always been Helen Thompson. We've never looked outside of that. And the answer I was given was like, we can't really do much because of that limited budget. So the chamber gets roughly 370, 400,000 from the city. I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are with the county, but with this collective funds, the chamber just didn't have enough money to go out and pursue a bigger firm that would go and give us bigger bang for the dollar, And so this, combining it with the city, the county, and the town of Fulton, if they do all 3 of these get on board, you have a lot more money to go market and actually get something better for your dollar. And so I think the city's looking at roughly 700,000. I mean, that could change. It's not exact number yet, but ballpark figure $700,000 if they pull just the marketing items off of each of the entities. That's $700,000. Right now, I know Judge Garza had raised a concern, like having another board that goes in and oversees this, and now you have another board. This board would be of individuals or elected officials that have some interest in it. So either a city representative, a county, attractions, whether that's art center or maritime museum or what have you, a hotel person, a restaurant person, people that have a vested interest in this community and tourism. And so we think that you're just replacing an existing board, which is of course the TDC, the Tourism Development Committee, which already funnels the money that the county and the city gives, and then directs them to Helen Thompson or whoever they so choose. This would be just replacing that and putting that in the hands of this group of 5 or 7 members, however this comes about. But I would urge the commissioners to consider doing something different. We've seen last few years, you had the pent up demand after Harvey, hotels did well. And we've been, been okay, but the last few years have seen a substantial drop off. And I think you see it reflected in your sales tax numbers. You see it on the hot tax numbers. I don't know what the collections are, but you'll see the city's already seeing a downward trend. So I would assume the county's always seeing that as well. And so I think we've got to do something different to do more marketing, pool our money together and go after certain markets that we haven't been able to pull. And if we just. But I urge you to consider that.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, thank you for having me to let me speak. I would endorse what Mr. Luck has said on that. I'm currently the head of the TDC, so it's kind of I'm getting rid of my own job by advocating this way of going. But I guess looking back, and I think everybody here knows that, but the origin of hot tax was to put heads in beds. It's to generate more stays in the town and promote the whole town. The system has become so piecemeal because there's so many different people getting advertising dollars from the three government entities that have hot tax that you cannot have a cohesive, coherent, direct marketing plan just for the county and trying to bring people into the county. Just briefly, I know people say that if it's not broke, don't fix it. In my mind, it is broke because it's been broken into all these pieces as opposed to one coherent push to do advertising just for the county. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. So we got a special meeting on Friday. It's at 1:15. The agenda's not complete. And so I could put an agenda item Friday if you want to, so that we could ask questions and y'all could answer. 1:15, maybe I'll invite the city since it's their plan. But I'm gonna have Tracy put it on the agenda. If the city won't show up, then I'll just cancel it.
Okay. Well, we have a meeting with the city today at 4 as part of their budget thing.
Okay.
We'll see which way they go, so.
Well, we won't pass our budget till.
The 9th of September.
Okay, so this Friday, I think would be a good time for us to discuss. Yeah.
I have a question. This is a workshop, is it not?
Yes, ma'am.
So do the same rules apply with the citizens to be heard and no response going back?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
If it's not on the agenda. Well.
But
We are talking budget.
it's a budget, but
We
it's
are
a
talking-
budget
It's a
hearing.
workshop.
Okay.
So after, since they've already spoke, I mean,
Yeah, well, let's move, it's about budget, let's move into budget.
You can't take any action, but you
Right.
could discuss it. Okay.
If you have,
And I thank you then, because then I have something I'd like to say, that's all right.
yes, you gentlemen, are y'all prepared to answer questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I have questions. I've heard from some of the main attractions in the area about this proposal by the city. I talked with the city manager about this maybe 2 weeks ago. I believe a lot of the impetus for this change is coming with the new city secretary and then also, some local support. That city secretary came from Fredericksburg, where they did have, I believe, such a position with the city. But I would mention that Fredericksburg is not Rockport. Fredericksburg has very well endowed and financially strong wineries and other attractions that have been there for decades that have the resources to do their own marketing. We are not that fortunate here in our community. There is some support through membership and endowment and foundations, marketing, but most of what people depend on here who have businesses or nonprofits are the funds that come from hotel motel tax. That being said, I worked for the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Corpus Christi for a number of years as my last position there was their CFO and VP for Finance and Administration. And we were the marketing arm for the city. But I can tell you that that was not a really efficient way to do marketing because a lot of money was spent in staff support. And when Amanda and I talked about it, not Amanda, when Vanessa and I talked about this, I said, my concern is if you bring in one person to do this, this will eventually develop into a department. And then there will be a marketing department for the city with a larger staff. And she said, absolutely, that's the direction we're looking at going. I'm not, I think of Jimmy Carter starting the Department of Energy with 10 people to help us cut our dependence on oil from foreign nationals. And we haven't seen that the Department of Energy has helped us in any way. I'm not sure I see that a marketing department with the city would help us here in Rockport, but that's one opinion, mine. The other concern I have is, and I have total respect for the chamber, and I was at the Government Affairs Council where this was brought up, I believe, in July, where it was first vetted, and I think maybe you all had just had a meeting that day. And Shelley, who is the current chamber president, said, you know, if they take the marketing funds away, that's fine, as long as the city still provides support for the visitor center, because it is a visitor center for the community. That wasn't decided then, and that wasn't the venue to decide it, but I just wanted to let people know what the chamber's look on this was. They would not like to lose that money, but if they do lose the marketing funds, they feel they'll have membership dues to cover that. Maybe they will, I hope so. But I also would point out that you gentlemen have been very active with the chamber for many years. And there has not been much change in the marketing campaign that the city has offered over the last several years. Before I was commissioner, I worked for the county. I sat in on all of Commissioner Court meetings. And the philosophy has not changed too much. That might be a failure of the chamber's marketing committee or whatever. But this decision that's being made is going to impact a great number of nonprofits in this area. And so far, I have not talked with a single nonprofit who supports this idea. They're very concerned about this idea. And they're especially concerned that the county would pull its support from what we've seen as positive results to direct it to something that's unknown. Plus to set it up in October to hire a person. Maybe that decision's already been made, but I would think just because of EEOC, they'll have to at least post the position. Then bring a person in and then start to plan. Well, I can tell you that the Center for the Arts and the Maritime Museum already have their advertising campaigns in place for 2025 and possibly going into 2026. So you're saying we're gonna hire a new person at the end of 2024. They're gonna come in, they're gonna set up a plan. Well, maybe good, maybe not, but I don't think that they'll be able to get an effective marketing plan in place by 2025 to bring in the visitors that this community needs. So that being said, that's my response.
And I think you, just to reiterate, what I stated earlier was the chamber had a limited budget. So when I was told, let's go look at another entity to go do the marketing, the amount of funds that they got plus their overhead that they took now left you with very limited amount of companies that will actually come in and do a job for less than $1 million, right? Some of the top firms are gonna want a little more of a budget to work with because media buys aren't cheap. And so some of this marketing campaign, it takes a lot of money. We kept fighting, when we were on TDC, we kept fighting for more and more hot tax. But, you know, you give it across to these entities and at no time, I've looked at what the cultural arts presented, some of the other requested entity, what they wanted out of the hot funds. It's like they deliver a piece of paper without any validation of any numbers. And when hoteliers, you could pass it around to all the short-term rentals, all the hotels in town and say, are these numbers reflective of what you're seeing? And they are not true. They are not true. And you guys take it as like, okay, Art Center came with this, ARCAD came with this, Chamber came with this. And you literally take it that those are the numbers and you don't have any hoteliers or any short-term rentals saying, hey, are this valid? Did your occupancy go up during this period? We don't. These nonprofits take it as like, hey, this is the money we get, hotel tax, but state law says you have to put heads in beds.
Right.
And if you're just putting numbers out there that haven't been validated, the city's plan is, I love the plan because the fact that they're gonna do geofencing to say, hey, Art Center had Art Festival on July 4th weekend. How many of these people went to hotels, short-term rentals, what have you? There's a way you could do that. That's the software they're looking at, which Vanessa alluded to. No longer are they gonna be collecting zip codes. We're not collecting no zip codes from any of these entities. We wanna know if we give $50,000 to Maritime Museum, that, hey, you did have 2,000 people come in over this period, or 3,000, whatever your numbers say. We're gonna back it up with geofencing, because you have that technology now. Before, and year in, year out, people would just ask for hot tax dollars like it's money. And I know elected officials, hey, I don't wanna raise property tax, but I love, this little vanity project. I love what History Center's doing. I love what they're doing. Okay, yeah, you wanna give it out, but they have to prove the numbers. And that's where, we as hoteliers have put in the investment, but we need to make sure that the state law is being followed, that, hey, do these generate the funds that they need to? Or are we just doing it because, hey, I love the arts, I love, history, I love whatever, that's not, I mean, as elected officials, you have to do your due diligence. Are these numbers correct, the way they're presented?
I agree with some of what you say, Jadine, and I will tell you, yesterday, we saw presentations from Cultural Arts District and from the Maritime Museum. I know for a fact that the Maritime Museum quizzes their people, their visitors when they come in. And since they have gone to a free admission because of a grant that was given to them to waive admission fees, they've seen a tremendous uptick in visitors. So they had about 50% of the people who came through their front door respond. So, okay, I know we're just working with 50% of the information, but of that, they had over 4,000 room nights in the last quarter. The Cultural Arts District uses an equation, an algorithm that was approved by maybe a gentleman with the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association. But as far as I'm concerned, that algorithm is worthless, because it says, well, there are this many room nights available, and we think we maybe had these people come through, and so we're going to estimate this. It's a totally invalid vehicle as far as I'm concerned. But even using a totally invalid vehicle, Cultural Arts District came up with 57 room nights for the quarter. I think what the Cultural Arts District is doing in the downtown area is great. It gives people something to do, it brings the merchants together, and that's a good thing. Do I think that people are coming here because of the Cultural Arts Districts? No, I do not. They asked for $55,000. And I'm not in favor of that. We've been giving them 10 for the last few years. Am I in favor of that? I don't know. And maybe some is better than nothing, but certainly not $55,000, because 57 room nights based on a faulty algorithm in a quarter, it's not worth it. I mean, we could have a sandwich board man standing downtown directing people for probably less money than that.
I go back to your maritime example, and yes, those people came from out of town, but did they come because it was a maritime museum? Or did they come to town and they went to the maritime museum? Would be, I mean, it's a claim that the maritime museum attracted someone to come to town. It's kind of like the art center used to have the art festival on July 4th weekend, when we had the air show and everything else, and they claimed every room that came into town during July 4th was to come to the art festival. That's just not true.
I would say that's true, but a lot of people do come because of those. I mean, the three main tourism attractions here, I believe, the Center for the Arts, the Fulton Mansion, and the Maritime Museum. And people will come here. And I go, we don't have anything else going on court, to the Tropical Trails, as you know, because you're on that board.
Right.
And those are good activities. But the idea is that you bring people to your community because there are some things to do here.
Add beaches to those attractions.
Yeah, the beaches are number one,
Beaches.
and they don't get any tax. And I've always advocated that somehow to offset the navigation district's expenses of running that many visitors through. That's our number one attraction.
It
They
is.
don't get any sort of an allocation, something. I mean, we're putting a lot of money toward this. Those are people that are coming to the beach, going to education center, going to Maritime Museum, Fulton Mansion. But it's one of our number one thing. And just the thing, you look at all this, tourism is our number one economic driver. So it warrants a separate board, a separate entity that can control this and grow this, right? If it's your number one industry, why wouldn't you allocate a certain amount of funds to say, hey, how can we take this to even higher heights, right? We can make this even better. We can take existing things that we have, all the attractions, and let's be on a comprehensive plan. This is not just, hey, we'll put it together. And the city, when Vanessa spoke, she doesn't want to go in as like it's doing a 180. We're gonna go in gradually. Art Center is our biggest recipient of some of their marketing dollars, along with the chamber. But if chamber money gets full, then Art Center has some of these top entities that they use for their marketing. She's just wanting to go and use them and do a hybrid model initially for the first year or two to encapsulate those companies that they've already had agreements with. Learn that for the first year or two and then move to 100% in-house. It's not gonna be overnight that we switch gears.
And every conversation I've heard has funding for the visitor center.
But they're pulling the money. Their
Yeah,
plan is to pull the money.
Pull the
So
money.
you're saying it's not gonna be overnight, but the other entities won't have the money that they traditionally got from the city out of the hotel motel. So that'll be a sharp difference.
Judge, I do have a couple of things to say, I guess, and I don't know which way to go on this, but I think it's worth looking at. One of the things is, then on all the up when you see these quarterly reports, there's, goes back to what was said earlier, there's always an assumption on why these people are attending. A lot of people are coming because this is overall, a lot of people have second homes here, economical place for people to come and entertain a family or have a good time. So, you know, sometimes I think when we get those reports, these organizations are drawing on those numbers to say they're drawing them here, but it's the people are here, and it's important to have something to do, just like the cultural arts district. It's something, it's an added feature for the people. But the other thing I've seen is everybody's hitting the same markets. You look at the reports from every entity almost, and it's like, here's the people we hit, here's the people we hit, here's what we did. It's all the same market. So by having, you know, 4 or 5 groups, 6 groups hit the same markets, are you really getting the best bang for your buck, putting the best presentation? So, you know, what's your return on your dollar? And when it also on the return on the dollar, I know when some of these reports I see, and they'll tout, well, we've done this, and you look at their attendance, and to me, the attendance is actually tailored to a particular group. Sometimes I'll say members of groups, you know, when you look at the numbers, so is that really the best? I'm not saying they're robbing the public, but it's, you know, those numbers, are they really representing what's best overall? So I think it's something worth looking at, but as far as going to it 100%, you know, maybe, I'm not sure, I'm interested about the hybrid thing. And one of the things that does concern me though, we have like I'm gonna say Oyster Fest and also, the Mardi Gras. That's not a whole lot of money they get. But that's seed money they have every year. And when you look on the return of what they put the money, those fire departments put the money back into the economy. When I say economy, actually our safety, because that money goes into the public safety. So those are something, if we looked at that, I wouldn't want to neglect those people. We have to keep that in consideration too. So, but I think, I'm not sure the method we do right now is the best use of public money, to be honest with you.
I do like the idea of geofencing, because I do like data.
Yeah.
But, sorry, Madam Treasurer, put you on the spot. Are we allowed to spend money on a program that collects data? Because we're a little more limited than the city.
Yes, so
We
we are limited, but that there is a clause in there that you can use the money to administer the marketing.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Which would include probably either a person or the geofencing.
if the city
Program.
goes with a company to do the geofencing, I would assume that the county just say, hey, we'll contribute 20% or whatever that breakdown is.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Or I'm all for that. No,
Right.
To clarify, if the city were to enter anything, hypothetically, the county could enter into an interlocal agreement
Yeah.
to bear some of the cost of the city's program, not without committing to any kind of percentage. But it is possible if you want to proceed.
And the other thing that's in front of the city right now, which I've advocated for, is that tourism study. We haven't done a tourism study besides the chamber doing some kind of well, they hired someone to go and do surveys at the beach, at the hotels and so on and so forth. But we haven't done a proper study of like, what is our impact of Winter Texan? How much do they bring in? What is their, contributions in terms of sales tax? I know they don't pay much on the hotel tax side. But what is their contribution? What's our tourism? How many people are we getting? All that, those data, we have nothing around that. And if we have to spend 20, 30, whatever it costs, I think that gives us a starting point of where our tourism is. And if we have to do that every 5 years and use hot tax dollars, just so all the entities that get the money also have a better picture, right? If you don't have that in front of you, what are you marketing to? You don't know where you're throwing your money, right? If I was in the business, I'd be like, let me get a handle of where my tourists are coming from, how long they're staying, what's the economic impact, and then that way I know where I'm gonna target my marketing, where I'm gonna spend my money. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I think I hope Vanessa undertakes. I think she mentioned it last week when you were at that meeting as well, that she's looking at doing a tourism study. She doesn't have a timeline yet, but it's in the works, so I'm at least glad to hear that.
That might be the first step.
Right.
One of the things that I've always thought in the hotel motel tax, the way we issue it out, how many goes to the heads and beds, we need a matrix based on heads and beds. Well, we came and stayed at one of the hotels here in town or rental or whatever, and we went to the following. Because sometimes with all this stuff coming in, you wonder where all these people are, because on July 4th, everybody's showing, well, they showed up here, showed up there. You can't count those individual people. They came down here and they did several things, and we don't have a real good handle on that. How many people really were in Rockport for July? If you go strictly, and how many people were in Rockport that didn't stay in heads and beds? I realize that hotel motel tax, it's for heads and beds, but it's, how many actual people are coming down here, spending the night, staying, with a brother or family, or have a house or something down there. We really don't have a good handle on that. And that's one thing I think that might be able to help us with. But I think this is an awful short time frame for us to think on something like that. We've been doing for a long time.
I'm coming from small town and actually been there long enough, I think, to remember when Rockport kind of small town, when you had a big event, you could tell the streets got real busy on, starting Thursday and stuff. It still happens, 4th of July and things. But overall, this area is busy every weekend now. So it's for, and it goes back to saying again, if you can say, well, this event drew these people. And I think the people are here so much every weekend because it's really a bargain place for them.
Right.
And we need to, that's, if anything, find a way to promote that to people, that this is a bargain opportunity.
I'm not sure what you mean by bargain opportunity. I think people are coming here, not just for the beach, not just to fish, but because we have so many things.
Most people, the biggest majority of people don't have disposable income. I mean, we're fortunate in this county that there's a lot of people with disposable income. But most people operate from paycheck to paycheck, and they can come here and they can entertain their family,
Okay,
and that's what I mean. Yeah.
because some of
and
our
reasonable-
areas also have free admission.
Yeah, and a reasonable cost. I mean, but if you go to Fiesta, Texas, Six Flags, just getting in, you're gonna go, you better have $500 just to walk in the door. And here though, you can come and, it's really a value to the public.
And I think just on that technology on tracking who's going to what. The other aspect that you haven't looked at is like that geofencing. If you haven't picked up on, let's say there's 50 people out there that I know Alma's trying to track down all the non-payers of short-term rentals. If geofencing shows you that this particular neighborhood or this particular house keeps getting hit from all these visitors going here, you've got maybe something that you can follow a lead on, which is, hey, is this house a short-term rental that we don't have on our radar? And maybe help collect on those fronts too. There's just a lot geofencing can do. If they went to art festival, what other things did they go to? What other venues did they go to? So I think just my 2 cents on this is like, if the county wants to somehow reallocate funds and at least have that MOU between the city and say, we'll help get that tourism study going and we'll help do this geofencing and let's see where we can go with that. I think that'll be a good start. And then let's see what city's decision is, and then maybe next year, year after, if that starts working out in that favor. I mean, I think my end goal is that if that does happen with the city, that eventually you have everything in-house, whether it's tracking down non-payers of short-term rentals. To all of that, it would be one department that would handle different people, but within that department, you would handle the non-payers of hot taxes. You would have marketing, you'd have a lot of other things that you could centralize. And my thing going back is just, it's tourism, it's our number one business. We gotta put a little more effort into it.
I think the idea of possibly helping to fund a tourism study is a good idea. And the geofencing, and Carl Hammond has talked about that. It makes more sense to figure out who's coming and who isn't coming first.
Yeah.
Before you hire somebody to start doing marketing. To find out, what are we even looking at first? The hiring of a person before we got that information does not seem like a logical progression.
I mean, you're just replacing somebody that's at the chamber with somebody within the city. They would have their marching orders once that.
We don't really give that much money to the chamber.
No, I know
Am
that.
I right? We give about $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yes, one
But
was seven.
cumulatively between the three entities, I mean,
They,
that
this
pays.
year they requested 7,
But last year, I think we gave them 60 something.
yes.
67.
And there's, I mean, visitor center, it's great. Every community has it. The numbers are, of course, we all know when we go travel, it's not stepping into a building. We're doing all the research online or on our phones. Their numbers have come down. I think their last numbers I had heard was like 6,000 visitors last year. And so, I mean, if the visitor center is, I mean, you gotta allocate maybe what, $5-10 a head. That's kind of the funding they would need for visitor center. I mean, if the current funding request, if it is what the chamber is requesting, that would mean you're spending $25-30 a head as every person walking in through a visitor center. So you also have to kind of look at that as like, everything's going to digital, and then we're spending so much for a staffed visitor center.
The visitor center numbers coming in are, precipitously down.
Yeah.
5-10 years ago, it's like 6,000 people a year going to that place,
So just,
which is a lot of money to spend for
yeah,
6,000 people. It's a visit. The other thing I think about the hiring a person is that currently now, with the advertising in the chamber, there's no advertising professional there. Or nobody that has had any experience whatsoever in advertising. So that's the attraction to me of having someone that understands advertising. And then without that study and giving the money to anybody, you can't focus it
Correct.
right now anyway. But if you have someone that has some experience at that and promoting communities, I think you have a better shot.
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, to go back to geofencing. This literally became effective July 1st, 2024, Texas Data Privacy and Security Act. So there might be some restrictions on what a county can do. That might or might not be different from what a municipality or a city can do, but that would be worth looking into for any agreements on geofencing. And that's a month old. So I wouldn't be able, I can research it. That would be my best answer. And get back to you, but it requires at a minimum, disclosure to everybody who comes in and the opportunity for them to delete their data, from whatever we gather. So, I can learn more about it and get back to y'all on that.
but the county wouldn't be gathering the data. You would be buying it through a third party.
Oh, okay.
You would hire a firm that does that. Nobody puts that effort into it. There's already, we've looked at a couple of them on EDC side for something. I don't know what Vanessa is looking at, but we've looked at kind of on EDC side. You basically can geofence your hotel and figure out where they all came from. And it's cell phone data, that's the thing. It's not done by phone number. It's just grouped, and you can't drill down to, hey, they were living at 224 Reserve Lane or whatever their address is. It's a generalized data. It says you had 500 people that came from Katy, you had 2,000 something that came from San Antonio, whatever. It's not something county does, it's third party.
She'll look into it. Yeah, all right. And, no, I like the idea of geofencing.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. You have any other questions, comments? And the city's having a meeting at 4?
Yeah, well, they're doing their budget, I think at 1,
Oh,
but Vanessa told us coming at 4, that's when they're doing the high tax portion of it.
so commissioners, if y'all are interested to hear what they have to say, 4 o'clock. And I'm gonna put an agenda item for our Friday meeting. Welcome. Do I still need to do that?
I mean, you could always table it, right?
Yes,
Yeah, we can always do.
Yeah, if city, something happens on it, I just table it.
I think we need to hear from the people that we're giving it to right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've had anybody contact you, I haven't. Going one way or the other, but. Either by sending them something out or whatever to get some feedback from them.
Good. All right, appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. That's the fun part. This is not.
that was fun.
That was fun. That was fun.
Before we get off the hot, though, I would like to add that we're not going to budget the revenues for that any higher than what we had budgeted this year, so keep that in mind. Because the numbers are just not, is not what we're doing.
Yes,
What was that comment?
We're not gonna budget the revenues any higher than what we have budgeted for this year, so in other words, we're not.
Anticipating any increase in hot funds, venue or sales tax.
So if any
We're leaving
entities,
them flat.
if any entities are actually asking for extra money, we should probably keep them out.
And if I have that up on the screen here, and Pat, like you were mentioning earlier about the cultural art. Right. Do you all want us to take this back to 10?
I would like it to be dropped into 10.
That's clear. See, without the documentation of what we've been receiving.
And then they have one salary person and everything else is electronic media. They're not paid ads, they're Facebook, just Instagram. That's not exactly what we ask people to use the money for.
And then on the same regards, what about chamber? They requested 70. What would you like us to do?
I don't think you can increase there.
No.
I agree.
So to
Because we're not anticipating the growth and
If we're not getting growth in the taxes coming in, I don't know that we should increase anybody.
So anybody in Mardi Gras, they requested 9,000 and we've always provided 8.
I think that's a good idea because one of my pet peeves has always been all of the hot tax that we collect comes from outside the city limits. And we spend most of it inside the city limits. So to me, something that's going on out in the county should actually, in my mind, be preferentially treated than. Because if you look at all the places we've historically given most of the money, it's not where we collect the money from.
And the thing about it is, their receipts, I mean, it's tangible. You look at the equipment they're buying, what they're providing public safety, to me, that's a cheap investment for public
Yeah.
safety.
But then I'm perfectly in favor of it for the reason that Commissioner Jubic just said and Commissioner Casterline, but I don't know how many people drive to Aransas County because of Mardi Gras.
Yeah, a lot of people do. They have, for the amount of space that they have and for the amount of people that they have working, they have a greater return on their investment than anything
I'm
else that's
saying they
going
don't
on.
want to. I'm just saying, are they coming from Houston and Austin and San Antonio? But I'm fine with giving them an increase
have you ever been to their parade?
It's awesome.
It's
a
the biggest,
couple of
I
times.
think, yeah, it's the biggest parade and I thought, I was like, oh, another turn? But
I think that's kind of illusion because you're in the brush, basically. You can't see anywhere, anything but trees back there. They might be sitting around in circles. I've been on it before.
And I know this Wings Over Rockport, I mean, that's a new event, and they're, but, you know, they're trying to do a fundraiser, and it's, they, you know, they really have made a request to try to just make this thing off the ground, and I don't, you know, that's something they're really hitting for. Counting on.
But they have done nothing except bring in one kind of concert comedian. And they have not proven themselves. So far, they've scheduled 2 air shows that they canceled both. And I don't think we give somebody something because, well, we want to do something big. Okay, well, then start getting some support for it. Bring in an event and then
Well,
we'll
their
support.
big thing is, they are trying to go toward that, tour of this air show, that's what it's going to.
But all of these numbers are budgeted and really the people that get them need to justify their expense to draw all the money, I would think.
I think 25,000 for a new nonprofit that has done nothing except bring in one comedian and have pancake breakfast is well beyond what we should be funding.
Well, I would say before we drop that, because it is trying to get it off the ground, and that's to help promote the airport. Maybe have the way, if we could ask this group to come to our, we have another workshop or another, can they come to our next meeting or something to speak about that?
But like I say, we're only budgeting, we're not, they don't get it normally unless they justify the expense, and I don't, you know, I kind of agree with the number, it seems like.
It's almost like a not to exceed.
I know that Cody Stewart had put on at least one successful fly-in, perhaps 2, before he ever came to court and asked for help. And I think we put 10,000 in
So
the
why do we
airport
have,
budget.
why do we have 2 lines, one for Wings Over Rockport and one for the airport?
That is for the air show, Aransas County Airport.
And how many of those people are staying in hotels? Don't forget that part. Or that is a fly-in, they
Well,
live down.
You don't know in anybody's
I don't know.
situation of who's staying in.
We don't know what the air show is because it hasn't happened. I mean, we've heard what goes on in other communities and what they'd like to do. So far, it hasn't happened.
I've heard their vision is to make this thing, you know, drawing people from outside the area, and people will be staying there, but it takes a multi-day event to make it happen. And, you know, some about air shows like we see on TV, on the news every now and then, these big events, that's what they want to do. And this is basically a incubator to do that from their end.
$25,000 for an unapproved entity, I think is extreme.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I say, we haven't really, we need to have them come speak before us and really.
What did they request?
They had asked for
They have
25,000.
But did they give me documentation?
I don't.
They can,
We'll have another budget meeting.
We do not have another workshop scheduled. We do have an item on the agenda every Monday to discuss budget items. So we can discuss it then if you want somebody to come and do a report or something.
Yeah.
We can do that. Or we can have another workshop. We just didn't schedule more than
do the regular
this.
Well, I think as far as this goes, I agree with the Wings Over Rockport specifically. I would like to see them come in, but you know, they're pretty high, and I think that I think that's an awful lot of money to do it. I think we should do something like around 10,000. But I don't know, but I think 25,000 is too much.
what was submitted was the 501c3 declaration from the IRS. I just got this from Tana. I didn't have this in my back pocket. And then the letter from their their president, Katrina Brown, saying that they've been awarded a 501c3 designation And they would like to have $25,000 from the COT funds to advertise outside of the 70-mile per year.
So Santa, can you back up to where the ones that we get percentages to are?
Yes, sir.
And does it show the routine?
These are 4% of collections.
And so why do we keep giving the art center the additional money over the 4%?
It was for
For your
For the
Right.
conference
For
center.
advertising?
Yes, they don't use the money they get from the county for hotel motel on anything but advertising expenses. They don't put them on salaries or administration fees, and that's in every single report that they present to us.
So is that a good thing to put advertising on? I've never been down there, but I guess.
They've brought in a lot of new groups.
events and stuff.
Well, they're bringing in groups too, like small conferences.
The aquarium for, what is it, 80,000?
Because they're allocated 10% of whatever collections. But then we haven't spent that.
We have not been, since we haven't had the aquarium up, we have not been spending that.
So we've been assigning it? We put it,
Going into fund balance, yes.
okay.
Actually, we're funding the building of it with what they didn't get. Is that kind of the concept?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of the years they didn't get the 10%.
Would y'all like that line item for the NAV district for beach cleanup? So it's,
Not really.
Have they requested it? Have they requested it?
No,
They didn't request, but yeah.
they collect tax.
They're a government entity. And I do agree though, they bring so much value to.
I would suggest that we would be better served to use that money to clean up other places in the county. On the
Means up
beach,
there.
on the waterfront or wherever we can.
Keep Francis County, we'll be in
I
5,000.
mean, they get a gate fee that's pretty much on the beach. I mean, we have a lot of remote areas within the county where people go and fish and stuff that we could do more cleanup than what we do.
This area north, on the causeway out here, just north of town, I mean, you look at that and.
Out there, you know, you go out by the big tree, there are always people like
Yeah.
my precinct over on Eagle Island the other day that there were 15 trucks parked along the road there where they fish off the road over there, and it's always kind of trashy.
Back at the Fort Bay Bridge.
Yeah, there too, and I mean, I think you have it in pretty much every.
We had transferred $250,000 from hotel motel to the waterway restoration for basically that type of stuff. We have not done that because our Go Mesa funds are running about $750,000 every year, so we have not been transferring. We've been leaving the money because of having to rebuild the aquarium and just not actually needing to build that other fund up. So it's something that we can do something, put it back into water, a portion of it back into water restoration, if that's what you wanna do.
So can
To
we
use
use,
it for cleanup, cause that's what we can do. That's what, it's for conservation and for waterway stuff.
I think we ought to look at funding something pretty good with that, not just a minimal deal, because I don't know if we could contract, if we can have Road and Bridge do stuff like that, or some other department, can we use that to fund in-house cleanup if they're not cleaning up?
If we put some of the hotel motel money in there, I don't see where we couldn't. Now with the Go Mesa money, there's a little bit more of a restriction on what you
Yeah.
do. But if we were putting part of the hotel motel portion in there, then we would be able to use that for whatever cleanup we wanted to do, whether it was in-house or
I think that's something that we seriously need all over the county and places where people go to fish, and if they camp or whatever they do, they always
So
leave
the
stuff.
water restoration wasn't just for Cedar Bayou?
No,
Okay, I didn't know what.
there was a different fund and it. Because we did use, hotel motel and put it into the waterway restoration.
I know we did that, but I didn't know what the.
I don't- I don't- No, the only thing that we're restricted on is if it's the Gomesa money. That fund is both.
But I like the idea of Commissioner Cashrone's the in-house.
And, you know, and if we need to check into the legality of that, we'll check it out, but if, you know. I think if we're,
You know,
if we're
it's a
gonna,
fund that we set up to keep it separate, so.
I think if we're gonna fund Lamar Draw at 9,000, we should fund Orchard Fest at that too.
I would agree with that.
I'm fine with that.
They did,
I mean, there's like pulling teeth to try to get them to take money because they don't seem like they want to be obligated to anybody.
well, Sharon
But there's-
Laughlin did call last week asking for 10,000. And I did tell her to send in an email request.
Okay,
I
Yeah,
did
'cause I
do that.
Called Sharon a few weeks ago and said, I don't think anybody's asked for anything for.
there,
Right.
I mean, it's like pulling teeth.
Well, she was real excited about my phone call, so.
So do you want to add something or look at adding something, transfer to the waterway restoration for cleanup, to do some type of cleanup that you're talking about, Commissioner?
I would like to, I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Well, I know Keep Aransas County Beautiful, we put some money in there for them starting a few years ago. Because they do a lot of volunteer work and they were just covering everything out of their own pockets. Now, maybe because they're volunteers, they can't.
Well, they
do
didn't,
anymore.
we've offered more or suggested more and they were not interested in it. They wanted to just keep it at that.
Yeah, they've got some grants and stuff because when we did that, track of jump boat haul offs and stuff, they provided a lot of volunteers and stuff with that and plus some other ones, but
But we're not doing it.
if they're not asking for it.
You're asking for that.
Some,
Like some of
maybe not
these
as much,
wings up rock,
maybe
watching
100,000.
online, someone, they wanna send somebody here around 11:30.
I hope we're not here at 11:30. Can't they come on Friday?
Yeah.
Have them come on Friday.
I have to leave at noon. I have a
For
lunch meeting.
I send them a text that tells, I had just received a text, that's what that's.
Okay, yeah, we'll invite them to a later meeting.
So
On Friday.
Oh, Friday we will, but if we table that item, if the city doesn't come.
Well, I
So
think we
Judge,
should
you
let
went
people
to,
come
you went to
anyway
the
to talk.
meeting, how did the city propose to, when they advertised and what they're talking about, just do generic advertising for the whole community or?
Now they're gonna get with the,
Fredericksburg really is the only real city of any kind in that county. I mean, it's not like there's 20 different cities or even, Fredericksburg doesn't have.
Yeah,
sister
but I
cities
mean,
to talk about.
there's a difference, most of these people that we give to advertise specifically for their,
For their
business.
for their facility,
Yeah.
their events where, like when the chamber, when they advertise, they don't do that. They don't advertise for any individual.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
might show scenes from all of the events, but they don't really hone in on one.
the way it was described to me is that Tracy has to post this like really soon.
Just put it on as a discussion.
I do agree with Pat, though, you can't, or as I think comment was made by Commissioner Cathleen too just now, that you really can't compare Fredericksburg necessarily to Rockport.
No, well, the difference is that we are much more complicated because we have, three distinct areas. We have the county, the city and the town, and then we got Lamar. And Fredericksburg doesn't really have that. They're just
Right.
basically just Fredericksburg. I think that's Gillespie County.
It is Gillespie County.
What if we start out, I had Tim put in $100,000 to transfer over to water restoration so we could do some cleanups and some repairs, or would you like more? I mean, it doesn't,
Transfer from where?
from
Hotel.
hotel motel to waterway restoration. So that we can.
That's fine with me, we don't, we can budget, we don't know.
I mean, if we don't need that much, we don't need it, but that gives us a starting point to be able to look at some stuff.
Okay,
Can you slow down?
let's,
About salary.
yeah, let's go to salaries
Sound.
and tax rate, right? So y'all got my letter. You want me to read it for the? Did I? All right.
You didn't suggest a number in there, though.
No, I didn't.
You just jump off the building and do that.
No, I didn't. So I sent a letter to the commissioners this morning. I am writing to strongly advocate for a necessary and overdue adjustment to the pay and benefits of our county employees. The data we presented, the data we have collected presents a compelling case for this action. High turnover rate. Our county is facing a significant challenge with employee retention. Currently, our turnover rate stands at a alarming 55.2%. That's about twice of the state average. State average, I think, is 21% for government workers. This high turnover disrupts operations, reduces efficiency, and incurs additional costs related to the recruiting and training of new employees, which is between $200 and $300 before an employee even walks through the door, or a new employee. Employee departure for better, or employees depart for better compensation. We're starting to do exit interviews, and we've noted that 44% of our employees leave for better pay and benefits elsewhere. This statistic underscores a critical issue that our compensation packages are not competitive enough to retain our valuable workforce. Employee feedback on compensation. 62% of our employees have expressed that the county needs to do better in terms of pay and benefits, which I think our benefits are pretty good,
They're tremendous.
really good.
This year they've improved too with those different insurance programs.
Right, yeah, they have, so we are working towards that. And this is just feedback from our employees. This feedback is a clear indicator that our current compensation structure is inadequate and needs to be addressed. Cost of living, the cost of living in Aransas County is notably high. Our employees are struggling to meet their financial obligations, which affects their overall well-being and job satisfaction. By adjusting their pay, we can help alleviate some of these pressures and improve their quality of life. Increasing our employees through better paying benefits is not just an expense, it is a strategic move that will yield significant returns in terms of improved morale, increased productivity, and reduced turnover. Our employees are the backbone of our county operations, and it is responsibility to ensure they are compensated fairly for their hard work and dedication. I urge the commissioners to seriously consider these points and improve the pay raise for our county employees. This action is essential for maintaining a stable and motivated workforce, which ultimately benefits the entirety of the community of Aransas County. And I just want to say again, the turnover rate is 55.2%, which is really high.
I saw a number somewhere that actually was in one of our previous, I think maybe in June, one of our previous meetings. Was that sometime this year, 77% of employees have not received any kind of
Step increase.
any kind of step increase, right?
Yes, I've got that number.
For this year,
Right,
as of the end of July.
yes, ma'am. Or I think it was the end of June.
It was in June, I can look back, I think it was a June meeting we had.
But that wasn't because of anything imposed upon them by commissioners court, was it?
No.
The failure of the supervisors to complete evaluations and people.
Yes,
Okay, I just want that to be on the record.
and I think, yeah, I think it went down. It's like 50%, so something like that, 53%.
But regardless, they're,
But those are merit pays, yes.
Yeah.
Merit raises.
Well, I would think that we probably have employees with the county who have deserved a merit increase and just hasn't. They have not received it yet due to the whatever reason of their supervisor.
Well, what type of increase are you thinking?
You know, it's based on what we can afford with the budget. Yesterday, we started with a 1.6 million deficit, and we took out all those step increases that everybody asked for, so it zeroed out because it's gonna be commissioner's court. And now, with all the changes, we have a 713,000 deficit. So
What if we did a 5% COLA, which is a two-step increase?
what would that bring us? What would that give?
No, and keep in mind, this does not include the no new revenue tax rate. This is the tax dollars that we had.
That's okay, we're just looking.
So do we have the new numbers from the appraisal district? Yeah, this first one.
We have suggestions that what you have is with the new numbers.
Level 500.
So a 5% COLA, which would equal a two-step increase across the board, would change the fund balance with a negative like 1,300,000.
So what did that raise at 500,000?
About 500 or a little more.
That's for a 5% increase.
And then are we going to also allow step increases after that, on top of that?
I would hope that we would allow a one-step increase.
I think this is.
Availability after that.
Yeah, COLA's a different deal.
Right.
But I would say,
But I'm saying, so you need to add another number if everybody is allowed to do it once.
On the step increases, we need to be consistent on that. I mean, we've said that the supervisor or the department head or whatever we have ways to get step increases. That's already part of our personnel manual and the individual job descriptions. And I think we've got some really good supervisors here that may be a little afraid to give step increases. But we need to help the community to understand, the county employee community to understand that you're not gonna get step raise if you don't deserve it. You know, we're not gonna just arbitrarily give
Yeah,
step
but
raises.
people historically, I don't think you're changing. Some people give them to everybody, some people.
I
don't give
understand
them
that.
any. I personally don't think that's fair and we're condoning it by keeping and doing it.
I agree.
You know, where
What's
you
your
could do
alternative?
multiple.
What's your alternative? Give everybody a step increase? I'm just asking, give everybody a step increase?
If you're gonna give 5%, you're basically doing
Well,
the same
5%,
thing. I know
well, COLA,
I know some people don't believe that. It's whatever you call it, it's a raise.
well, it is, but it's bringing you up to where you were last year.
You hear what I said? Whenever you give somebody more money, it's a raise. I don't care what you call it. It's a raise. If it's to make up for cost of living or whatever, when you give somebody more money, you're giving them a raise. You can tag it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But what it is, what it is.
But they're two different things. One is one you earn and one is because of the economy.
We'll have
Well,
to
that's-
agree to disagree.
No, I appreciate that.
The problem is there are some supervisors who just don't want to do them. And you say maybe because of, please. You say maybe because they're afraid of the community's reaction. That's possible, but I will tell you, I don't think the community has that much awareness of what goes on within the county. Unless, you know, it's something in the paper. They don't know which supervisors are giving raises and which supervisors aren't. Where we ran into a problem, or where the county ran into a problem, was that a few years ago, it was really abused in that people were giving 3-step increases once or twice a year consistently within departments. And then they come to us and they tell us, we have employees who are making almost as much as us as department heads or as elected officials. And my response is, well, then why were you giving them 7.5% to 15% increases year after year? Because eventually, yes, they're gonna catch up and pass you. So we can't do anything about maybe supervisory skills except try to hire better people or try to elect better people. But what we can do, at least through a COLA, is make sure that folks are getting some kind of an increase. And in the past, I haven't been for them because Social Security, which a lot of people in our community are retired, was not giving very much either. But over the last year or so, Social Security's given some nice COLAs. And so people now who are retired, and I don't know that there are many in our community that are depending solely on Social Security, but it's certainly a big chunk of your income. They've seen an increase, so I think therefore I can support an increase to our employees, whereas before.
Oh, I can too.
Well, it's just people.
I will say last year with the one step that we were allowed, I had one that was doing enough but wasn't doing beyond. And I did not give that step increase and put him on a work improvement. or the amount of work improvement and 45 days to reassess. He met those conditions and then I gave that raise. It was a way to change what was happening within the office. If it is used correctly, it is an amazing tool for department heads and elected officials.
But overall, it's never been used correctly.
Then those people need to be discussed with.
Most of them are elected officials, but you can't dictate how they do their job.
So, 5%, oh, yes, sir.
I think 5% is a valid number. I mean,
Yeah.
we are experiencing lost employees. I know the city is dealing with the same thing right now because employees are, the cost of living here has gotten to the point. And we do pay less than the city in a lot of circumstances. So they're suffering a loss of employees currently because of pay. I mean, it's gonna affect us because I think some employees would go. But we need to do what we can. 5% it seems like a big chunk, but it's a good business.
Have we looked at, we were talking about doing a salary survey?
I asked about the status of that and it's going. Status? It's going back to the committee.
We're supposed to have another meeting about it. Desiree and I were talking about it yesterday, but it hadn't been scheduled.
Well, yesterday, it was brought up that you can get some of that information from DAC. Why can't we at least get that information?
Is that mostly?
Is it mostly
officials?
elected officials?
The book they give me is only elected.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only elected officials.
But any of that data can be had from other counties. You pick a county of your equivalent population or revenue or whatnot, and you can get that information. If we
Just
want
kind of
to
like
pursue
we
that.
publish it, but we don't have the name. We don't publish the names of the people, but do we publish the position? That's what we do. Well,
We were gonna try to get the one from San Patricio, remember?
I'm good with the 5. I really think we should cut from 3 on the steps.
Oh,
Down to
Well, I'm
like,
talking about no more than one.
yeah,
We're not doing that 3.
I'm agreeable with that. The 3 is the deal that
Yeah.
has just historically been abused every year, I think.
I can tell you that the legislature has commissioned a study of all district clerk and county clerk employees in the state of Texas. I
So
don't
why would
know.
they discriminate against everybody else? Sounds like a
Stronger
lot.
lobbyists.
I don't know. I don't know
They're
when.
gonna do one, they do, so they'll do one for everybody.
I don't know when study is gonna be available, but they have started collecting that information for comparison purposes too.
Yes, ma'am.
The one thing that we have run into, and I'm not meaning to step on anybody's toes in here, is people who, to get around some of it, or maybe it's well deserved, change job descriptions, change people's duties to be able to give them more, to promotion. So they've worked around, and we see a lot of that also.
I was gonna mention that myself because that's one way of preventing that obvious rate.
But it still has to come to court to be approved.
Right, but okay, let's.
A new job description, but if they already have the job description and they just move somebody into that position.
Oh, I see what
It
you're
doesn't
saying.
go to court.
I see what you're saying.
And
It's an internal
then
promotion.
it's an internal promotion and sometimes they get 3 and 4 and 6 steps. I mean, it can be significant.
We just had one that the promotion itself was 6 steps and then a couple of months later, then they get to 1 step. So that person just got 7 steps. And so it makes it unsurreal for looking at everybody as a whole.
I guess on elected officials, being the department heads, I don't know if it's legal or not to do it. But I know anytime we had a motion in business, you had at least a second level of approving it, the next level to verify that everybody had all the documentation in place, but I guess we.
I don't think we
You
can do that with
know,
elected officials.
we have, there are other counties close to us. They take every personnel action to
Holy cow.
hiring, every person that's hired goes to court and gets approved before they're put on payroll. I mean, San Pat County does.
Yeah, I've seen that.
We used
Everything.
to, I think, at one point, not
Everything.
almost everything, a long, long, long time.
We did
ago.
a long time ago.
And then y'all kind of said, oh, you know,
Give me a break.
and then they.
So
There's always consistency when you do that, I guess.
I would say if it's gonna be more than one step, then it goes to court, or it goes to, you know, some other direction. If it's a promotion, I really think it needs to go farther than
It
just
needs a
a
second,
sign off on
second step.
something.
And I would also like to say, as everybody is saying, it's the department heads, elected officials. Since Judge Vargas has been in, we've had more department head meetings than we've ever had. But I think they need to be a little bit more protective. I'm speaking from the financial part of it, as in the money in the bank part of it. And department heads look at it as a different way, and I'm not against raises or anything. I would give everybody everything. But sometimes you need to live within, you gotta live within your means.
True.
And I don't know
So,
if it's the department heads, but I think that we need to keep doing the department heads and keep talking with them and keep it all in line, because it is up to those department heads and elected officials.
Well, one of the things about having department heads do it, you know, we're assuming that they're well trained in how to administer step increases and stuff, rather than just 1, 2, 3, checking off the things.
And that's kind of what I'm.
Yeah,
instead of
you can
just
do-
minutes.
You can do a checklist and do everything on the checklist, and the person not be capable of doing the next step up job. And I think you mentioned that, you know, earlier in the fact that there does need to be an overall supervision, which I think is what the judge's job is. I think, you know, you are over personnel, and
There you go.
I think I honestly think before any, other than just time and grade type step raises, or you went to a school and you did this and you can do, but any kind of time you move into a step raise based on merit, other than required, anything based on merit should go between the elected official or the department head to the judge, because ultimately the department head is in charge of who they give this to, but they're not in charge of the money.
Well, and the judge
Judges.
does sign off on them when they're requested. And I think what I'm suggesting with some of them that are promotions and something that's gonna be over that would not take away from him, but have the full court look at it rather than it just falling on him to say, hey, you know.
promotion is different. You could be down here and get promoted to a lead and you skip several
That's
steps.
true. That's true.
That's a job, that's a true job description.
Mhm.
It's not in the budget. No, most people come to us to make sure that dollar amount is gonna fall in the budget, because if we budget them here and we don't know that, you know, 6 months they're gonna be here, then we haven't budgeted that. We've budgeted for it to here and maybe 1 step, but not 6 steps. So they then, you know, circumvented the budget because it was not in
But
the
it's not
budget
the
to do
person
that.
that's funded, it's the job. So I don't
I
see how the money.
understand that, but if we don't have that position,
Oh, you're talking about a new position.
it could be a new position and it could be. Help me here. A new a vacant position that hasn't been funded in a while. I mean, there's
That's
different scenarios. And I think if maybe what we need to do instead of just if it's gonna be that, say, okay, it's outside the budget. Now it goes to court.
Okay,
That
that makes sense.
Outside the budget goes to court.
Outside the budget goes to court.
And then
I was just gonna say, in addition to the other comments here, I think it would be an understatement to say that it's a very delicate balance between identity as a county employee and then hiring and firing authority delegated to possibly an elected official. So there might be some conflict, like, for example, the county attorney is elected, county attorney cannot fire any of the employees that fall under the county judge, right? So I do think there's possibly, it might not be, but possibly a conflict of hiring and firing authority. I do think it's a good idea to present those things to the court. I would also say I'm going to a conference in September that is talking about the updates on employment law specific to counties. And I'm more than happy to give you an update or a report of anything I learned there that might provide some clarity. On those.
Outside the budget, I get.
Yeah.
And
this wouldn't be hiring or firing, because you're right. I mean, the elected officials have that authority.
Mhm.
Hopefully they'll work with the HR director so that we don't regret the way the termination came about. But if it's not funded, then that makes sense that it would have to.
Right.
and most come to us. But to make sure that they're within budget, we would just have to be sure, and maybe at one of the department head meetings, encourage and stress the fact that they do need to come to us. Because Tana's got worksheets where she can work out the numbers and let you know whether it's gonna stay in budget. Because sometimes it's somebody left and okay, so to do it here, we're gonna do this one here. So there's ways to figure it out, but I would say if it's gonna be outside of budget dollars, that we need to bring it to the
Yeah,
board.
absolutely. Yeah.
Since day one, we have updated the personal action form, maintenance form, both. Before the judge signs it, to include when was their last step, more information for the judge to see readily, and so if budget item maybe can start appearing on there. Or somebody check off before the judge signs it that the budget was
It's within
checked.
budget.
That would
We
be
can do
great.
that too, because we've given him a lot more information than we ever did anybody in the past before he signed, so he can readily look at the check off and when the last step was and have that information before he signs off on it.
In the court, we just approved a new job description and as a senior something. That's because the employee reached the end of her.
Oh, it was the senior chief clerk.
Right,
in the
she
chief-
reached the end, so when we promoted her to a new job description, the money was the same. I believe, and then, cause she couldn't get her step.
Well, and
because she was at the end.
that's, yeah, and what she did was just go into that level, to that step in that group, so that she's level, but she has room now to, and that's fine, because then we still can work within the budget, because any
Absolutely.
steps would be
And then
included in the
her
budget.
former position is not gonna.
It won't be
Bill.
until, or unless she leaves,
Unless we
Right.
add
and they
a
would hire
position.
somebody, right?
Yeah.
And we
court would
clarified
have-
that before we voted.
Yeah, court would have to actually add a new position, because you didn't add another
Right.
you just, okay.
And just for the court, I mean, I've gotten a lot of requests from. Department heads, they have like some superstars, they already got their one step and they've come to me and said, hey, I really want to take it to court to get another step. And I've said, no,
Yeah.
nope, this is a court, this is a decision, you have one step, that's it. So, I mean, that's been out there, y'all don't see that, but.
I
So we
guess,
might hear about it.
I know we're gonna meet again about Sabbath. I guess two things I wanted to, it was mentioned yesterday, I guess the sheriff was asking about some way to, you mentioned the stipend.
An incentive, yeah.
Some kind of incentive for that, one program, a fitness program. And the other thing, I think we need to address too, is when we had, constable from precinct 2 come in and ask for increasing basically his salary, and I guess
We have not made a policy as much as I'm aware, that we are required or even encouraged to look at what things are going on elsewhere. Because we have our own budget that we have to deal with. And it's good to know that information, and it's good to look at it, it's good to consider it, but it's not an obligation.
I agree with you 100%. That's what I want, but I want to say, it was.
To discuss.
We need to discuss it, I think as a court, because he did make this presentation. And, my opinion is if you're an elected official, you ran for a position, you know what it is.
And you know what the salary is.
Well, and take for an example, road and bridge engineer. Road and bridge engineer, David, took the job at under market value. The man that just came to us took the job under market value.
That's a
Not-
hard job, not a.
Well, I understand that, but it's the same situation. We don't hire at market value. We hire at what the court decides the value of the job is in this particular circumstance.
That the county can afford. afford to.
that the county can afford, so. Yeah,
I knew what I ran, kind of, what the county judge made. I'm making less than I did building houses, so, yeah.
oh, poor
But you have a lot more
Tito.
fun.
And a lot more-
A lot more.
No drama.
I get to wake up earlier.
Yeah, no drama, no stress.
Yeah.
I'm working a lot more hours now than I ever
But and
did.
it's not, and not to say that the constables aren't doing a lot, and they have a lot of duties and a lot of, but, you know, as an elected official, I don't think.
I'm not gonna ask the court to match my pay when I build houses.
Well, I am not supporting any increase specific to any one elected official.
No,
So, in the meantime, in the discussion, I did go in and somewhat added another step.
So we got
This is-
5% COLA and one step,
And
Right.
one step would be that.
and the one step is,
That's 100,000, a little less than 100,000 more.
Yes, sir. So that went from what, 1.3 to 1.5.
So that's
What is our reserve current?
Thought that was 1 point.
Currently it's like 5 million. This actually shows anticipating it reducing down to 4, if we, depending on what tax rate we do. Right now, without changing anything, it's 4.33. I can't see that.
Yeah, I think-
3.6,
Well, with all the grants we have going on, we have a lot of float.
We
You
have a
know, so
lot of float.
in reality, what is our normal balance on?
That's our normal balance. We probably really right now it's less than that because we're borrowing from this
Yeah.
to keep things going, but we just got a good chunk of money yesterday and anticipating another chunk this week. And a lot of those grants are winding down to the point where
Yeah, they're.
they're about almost 100%. Not that it's over, because then we've got 2 more things that are gonna be close to $20 million
Yeah.
between Basin 39 and the Midmont, when those get
And,
going.
Shell Ridge and Lamar Beach.
Oh, yeah, we've still got those two.
If-
That's.
if they give them to
IOPs.
us.
But we need about $2 million a month for the general fund to operate on, more or less, don't we?
It's not 2 million for general fund. It's
Payroll
maybe,
itself is $1 million a month.
yeah, maybe 1.5.
About 1.5.
Yeah, but it's not all general fund either. So
Well, I'm saying,
Well, I look at it as a whole, I don't look
Well,
at this fund or that.
I would say it's probably a little over million two, something like that is what we would use in general fund.
And when you say, since it's being televised, that we got a chunk of money, those were grant reimbursements.
They were
Money we
reimbursements
paid out, just so
already
people
paid,
know
yes.
what the chunks of money there.
And it was like $2.2 million that we got yesterday, and we're anticipating another 1.3 million, 1.6 million dollars.
And those are to reimburse us for expenses
Reimbursements that we've already spent.
Is that a fund that is sitting at a negative $9 million?
Yes, I've been watching.
and if we
Yeah,
get hit by
we-
another, if we get hit by another hurricane, some of that money's gone in a hurry.
That's not gonna happen.
You're right, I agree with you that it's not gonna happen. I'm wishing them all away. Okay.
And I've been listening.
So, all right, so we got this, right now we're 1.5.
So it's saying 5% COLA and then a 1-step increase is available if supervisors will
that's the key.
put in with the.
It's not a 1% across the board raise.
Right.
It's a, stay with the one step.
But
Oh, no, that's.
in addressing what Commissioner Casterline said. And I talked with a few people last night afterwards about the proposal of the program at the sheriff's office. I think keeping the deputies in good physical shape so they can do the work that's required for them to be deputies is a great idea. But I don't support the 1-step increase, because then next year be another step increase, and then we have people making more money than the sheriff. And I think, and I realize that he said it was a negative reflection, that they couldn't serve as a deputy, they served at the jail, they still kept their deputy uniforms. But if you can't do the physical work that's on the sheriff deputy
You're gonna get
job
hurt.
description, I mean, essentially, you're really getting paid to do a job that right now you can't do. And if you can do the work at the jail, they need people there, that's fine, but I think we expect them to fulfill what the requirements are on their job description. So even though he considered it a negative implication that they couldn't serve as a deputy, they had to work in the jail. They can't serve as a deputy if they can't do the physical work, and I'd like to get a copy of the job description to see what it says. And I'll get one, but that's just my take on it since you mentioned the program.
So you, I guess, my question, are you for or not for, like a one time payment?
Not for,
No incentive to do your job.
that's what the job requires, that's
So
what the
what
job.
does he talk about having them do, go to?
I think they had to do like a couple of laps or something, I don't know that they did push-ups, I don't know exactly what it entailed.
They don't have somebody actually giving them a physical test.
I think it is.
No, they did, I think that the chief deputy sort of administered that program in the past. And so, yes, they had to go annually and perform. I don't know the details of it, I just would know because of the reason.
Well, also keep in mind, we did adjust them, what, 10% a couple of years ago?
Yes.
We did, so trying to bring them up, there are other incentives for the law enforcement to make
Yes, certification.
the stone garden, the certificate stipends, the SB 22, whatever the heck that is.
228, I think.
The two SB 22, but we used it for equipment. We did
Oh,
not use
okay,
it to
so
pay
they're
the
not
salary.
so they have other things that normal employees don't have, so. I don't know what to say, why they have a high turnover in the jail. I don't know if that's about the dollar.
Because it's a terrible job, that's why, because it's a terrible job. I mean, that's the reason. Well, I think it's more because Harpus and bigger cities
Oh, yeah.
are paying. Small towns train them for big
Mhm.
towns, and I know my son's a game warden, when they had graduation for their academy, he said the Austin City Police had recruiters the day they got their diploma from their school, Austin had recruiters in the audience and trying to hire them.
Your son didn't go to work for him, did he?
Hmm?
Did your son go to work for him?
No, he worked for Parks and Wildlife. But it said they had recruiters and
Oh,
other
yeah.
city had recruiters there on graduation day trying to hire them away from the Parks and Wildlife.
So let's talk about tax rate.
So we take a short, or do you think this isn't gonna take very long?
I'm probably a hard stop at 11:52. I got a business line. Yeah, we can take a short break. We can take a short. Take a short 5-minute break.
Before you go across Corn Lake Bridge, it's right there on the left. Be on the, be on the northwest side. Yeah.
Let's continue.
Thank you.
There's an easement, public easement.
And discuss.
Goes 1,500 feet down. Shoreline.
I think you all have the sheet that I gave you from yesterday. Yes. Okay. Okay, so here are our number of the 1.5 is the 5% COLA with another step. 1 step increase and no new levy rate.
Okay, and that is going into reserves, 1.561. 1 million.
And that is the top calculation on your sheet, right? So then following are.
Now that-
Is that the one in yellow?
In yellow.
Okay,
Now that's just going into the general fund, so that much.
So then following, we have 4 more scenarios. So we'll have our new revenue rate with 1 extra penny is your second. And in the yellow, you'll see for your county M&O what that will bring. And then if you see your last column, that'll give you the difference, what extra.
so that would almost wipe out what we're taking from reserves.
Yes, ma'am. Do you want me to put it in there and I can?
No, I
show you
can
on the
just-
screen?
Well,
I
I
can
think
see that.
that compares to last year, it doesn't compare.
That is true.
But when you're looking at what the difference is, okay. When we're looking at it here, we're only talking about the general fund. When we're looking at it here, we're talking about all the funds.
All of them.
So you really need to, and what you refer to as a general fund, that is county and M&O.
Yes, sir.
So that's really what
Being effective.
the effective deal is, the comparative of it.
Yeah. So if we add
So if we went with the no new rate +1,
you'll see it on the screen. I just
we
changed it.
would delete that 1.5 by a little over $1 million.
Yes, sir.
No, that,
No,
that
just
is,
take
that's
it
comparing,
500,000.
right, because it's comparing it to last year. But
But
So it will be, maybe we get the whole 1.5 million.
it'll
Probably
take you
not
to, and then like I said.
See, what these numbers are, this here
Right.
is comparing it to last year's rate.
Okay.
So it's only gonna increase it by 1 over last year.
Okay.
This no new revenue rate is increasing it by 500,000, so this is basically just another 500,000.
Yeah.
What are, at what point do we say we're not gonna go into a deficit? Don't go into our reserve. There's no point that I'm concerned, what point,
Right.
you know, we can push it down the road, but, and I think it's been pushed down the road a lot, but there's some point where it's pushed down so far it becomes unhealthy.
Like it was last
And
year.
I don't know what that is.
I don't really think that we should cap any more than 500,000 out of our reserve.
I know for sure, so hopefully we get these lawsuits settled in 2025 and in 2026, we don't have to budget 500,000 for attorney fees.
and we can put some money back in reserve because a lot of it is money that's already coming out of the general fund. reserve.
Yeah,
So this year we should probably, we'll say. Yes, hopefully next year it'll be an improvement from, we won't be going to the deficit anymore.
That's,
You know, it would be wonderful for me to leave on that note.
Is that-
That is my,
It's in a pipe dream or is it a possibility?
my wish is that I leave on that
Yeah,
note,
but the-
everything's settled.
The reason we ever started going into the reserve is because just the idea that that's the taxpayers' money.
Yes.
So at some point, you set a limit what you want to keep in reserves and, you know, once you build up more than what you've set it at, I mean, when I first got in, we had about a $250,000 reserve was all we had.
Wow.
And
Wasn't much.
it's gradually, you know, said, hey, this is not enough, and we gradually worked it up over the years. And, you know, we would look at it and say, okay, maybe we take up to a half, you know, we wanna keep 5 million. You know,
The
build
general,
up to,
I'm sorry.
we build up to 5.5, we use that to keep from raising taxes.
And general accounting principles, they recommend, you know, best practices are 3 months operating the reserves. We've had as much as close to 6 months, 5.5 months. So we have gone into reserve some, we have reduced them. We also have to realize, and we know from Harvey, that
Yeah.
we have, you know, we had some big dollars, just our
Yeah.
debris alone, was $42 million.
Long before we got reimbursed for it.
We had a very good contractor, which we still have, who worked on credit mostly because they would bill us, they would whole wait for their money.
Was that Crowder Gold?
Crowder Gulf, they
Mhm.
waited for their money. We did get some advances and that helped from Cheatham, from FEMA. But we had some significant dollars out there, sitting out there waiting for reimbursement.
Well, I think it's a good idea to have an adequate amount in our reserves,
I do
for
too.
sure. And not just think, oh, well, things will be good. So the next one down, Janet, is that what you plugged in?
No, ma'am, I actually plugged in the fourth one down. The voter approval rate.
Is that the voter approval and not the one with increments, just the voter approval?
What about the third one? Tell me about that one.
The third one is our voter approval rate with our unused increments that we did not use the last 3 years.
Okay, that's a VAR voter.
This is.
And all that really means is it gives authority to raise taxes a little bit more.
Well, you know, in the past, you used to be able to take your no new revenue rate, and before you had to go to an election, you could raise it 8%. Well, they reduced it down to 3.5%, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But if you did not use those, you got to bank them and hold them. And
Year period.
as 3 years, we did not use them for several years. Last year, we used a portion of them. We did not use all of them. And so we still have a little bit banked, plus our 3.5 that we can increase this year under the voter approval rate. So what that rate is using all of our banked increments, that we can go to that without subject to going to election. But that's as high as we can go.
That whole one is as high as we can.
Yes, sir.
But right now, looking at what we have there, we have a 3-month reserve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we probably have more like maybe 4, 4.5. I would say with that.
Well, and the amount of reserve we have, it's helped us. I think we actually have had a lot more bidders on our grant projects than what, I've heard other counties said they couldn't even get a bid. I think it was
Well-
Beville, they had some of the same grants that we got. Nobody bid on them, and just like one of the contractors was saying, talking about how slow Refugio had been paying them, well, they didn't want to go back and bid on it anymore. And I don't know how y'all do it, but it seems like we pay them a little quicker than what other people do.
A lot of
I don't know
people-
why, but
A lot of people wait because you don't have to pay them until once you get your money, once we get the money from GLO, we're required to pay it within 3 days. What we have done is we have gone ahead and paid them and then asked for reimbursement because we have all the paperwork, all the backup and everything, and asked for it. So we're actually paying them probably 45 days or more sooner than anybody else is paying.
what I'm saying is it makes a lot
Oh,
of
it does
difference
make a lot
to
of
the amount of bidders that we got, because
Yeah.
like I said, Beville, they had 2 of the same type grants we had. They didn't have a bid on 2 of them at one time.
Yeah, we have, and that's why you have a fund that's like $9 million, you know, we're waiting for reimbursements because we have tried to build the rapport with our contractors and to make sure that they're paid not so they do a better job or do faster or anything, but just because it's
It's good
hard.
business. It's
I
good
mean,
business.
it's good business, but it's also very hard for us because of having meetings every 2 weeks. We never know when those monies are gonna come in, and we have to pay within 3 days. So we just chose to go ahead and pay them in advance and get reimbursed for it.
Mhm.
I mean, works great until we got this new grant administrator at GLO that's a little slower than others, and a little pickier and a little.
Yeah, some of those monies were coming in.
Yeah, we were
30
getting
days.
really quick, and now, I mean, she sends things back and she picks them to death, and.
Maybe she'll
pennies
get
here,
fired.
Pennies there, and
Not from
well,
the.
actually,
Promoted or
we have actually been, building a rapport with her,
Yeah.
and she is,
Trust
you know,
me.
we've talked to her and worked with her to where she is working a little harder on making sure that our money's not held up as long.
That number we're looking at there is the fourth one down?
It is the fourth one down, yes, sir, the voter approval rate.
So what is
$3.25.
our this year's tax rate, total tax rate?
If you see the last scenario, that is this year's tax rate.
0.3584.
Yes, sir.
So this is like a 6.1% increase for our total expenditures. Since
And like
last year.
Hannah said, this is the one without using increments. If we use the one that has the increments, we actually would put a little bit into the fund balance, I believe,
Yes.
like 200,000 or 300, something like that. That's what it was.
Regardless of-
Do we have a period of time do we have some time that we have to use that up by?
Well, you know, we recommended last year to use a lot of it. We had heard they were gonna go away. We've used most everything. They would let you carry them for 3 years, and I have not heard anything different.
So do you think we need to go ahead and use them and?
Well, when we went to the truth and taxation class, Tish and I did, the instructor did tell us that they were getting rid of the increment.
So I would say
Of the
yes,
tax
we
rate.
need to use it.
Use it.
Or we're gonna lose
Use
it.
Lose it.
Yeah.
I mean, if y'all feel comfortable in doing it, then, you know, we've used most of it, so we're not losing a very large.
So can you use
number.
the increment on a different one other than that one?
You would have to stay somewhere in between that.
You would have to stay somewhere between your fourth scenario voter approval rate and the third scenario of the
Just
max of using the
3.74.
increments.
Can you put in there the voter approval rate?
Yes, sir.
That is, oh, I thought you told me.
No, I changed it already.
Oh, she's busy over there.
I know, I said,
All the
I keep
questions
saying
you're
I'm gonna
asking.
be quiet, but I haven't been able to do that. Next year, I'm not coming.
Oh, okay, this is the voter approval rate here on the screen.
So we're looking at 600,000.
This is with the voter approval rate.
This is
Okay.
the voter approval rate.
So it went from 1.5 to 1.2 in the whole, and then now 876.
Yes, ma'am.
And the voter approval rate, that is a 3.5% increase.
Yes, sir.
Three point something percent on some individual taxes or?
If over last year.
Over last year's expenditures.
Last year's expenditures or last year's rate?
No, the rate.
Oh, how do we do, so what are we increasing our budget by over last year percentage wise?
Well, I think what most people are gonna look at, okay, whatever their taxes on their house is.
Right.
If when you raise that rate, you're effectively raising that.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think the average person,
Yeah.
you got some people that look at what our total budget is, but that's the number that.
Is this a 3.5% overall average when you look at the whole tax bill?
Actually, it's this rate right here, and they calculated on that. And it's only on the M and O portion of that even, because we can't collect it on.
Debt rate stays the same.
Right, we have to set a debt rate and that has to stay the same, so the actual 3.5 is only on the M and O portion of it.
So this 3.5 is based on M and O from this one here.
Yes, and I will tell you that we keep everything level and so that the increase is only on the counties, the general fund M and O. Everything else stays the same.
All these other rates.
Oh, I see.
Look at them.
So county debt, mosquito control, road and bridge M and O, flood debt.
Yeah.
Those rates all remain the same. The only thing that changes is county M and O.
Right, we're putting it to M and O. And we did with this year, use $300,000 of reserves in debt to keep the debt rate a little bit lower. We paid one issue off, the LTR 2012.
Yeah.
And so those dollars, the principal that we were paying actually moved to one of the other. The way that Mr. Henderson does it, he kind of keeps it level, so we stay that.
But we're paying more on the other things that we owe since we've
Yes.
eliminated that one
Yes,
expense.
it moved over to the principal on one of the other issues. We also have budgeted because there were still reserves in that line, in that fund. We've budgeted to use 300,000 of that to help reduce the debt levy. And if we, with doing that, keeping it here level, then we could keep that in M and O.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
My problem is I understand it and it's hard to explain it.
So does the voter approval rate mean that it goes to the voters to be approved?
Anything we do from there below does not go to the voters, only if we go over. And to be honest with you, we would probably drop the last number. Just so that
Or
we
you'll
stay
be under.
zero.
The 6 point. Until we're in like the 100,000th place.
We would probably drop that last one just so that we stay under it.
Oh, okay.
I've always taken the opinion of not rounding up, round down on that last number, so you always stay below. And Jerry and I always had that same philosophy.
Jerry Collins.
The voter approval plus unused increments, even though it's higher than the voter approval, you can still do that without an election?
Yes.
Okay.
And that would give us some reserve, that would increase our reserves maybe.
No, it still goes into a deficit, but it's 175,000 into deficit.
Just a hundred and seventy-five.
Yes, sir.
So ultimately, you're pretty much even,
Even.
especially if we don't have attorney's fees all
Right.
year.
All year in 2025. Yeah, that's a whole.
I just don't feel comfortable going over the voter approval rate, even though there's unused increments.
Well, the only thing you have to realize there is that we may lose those
Right. Did they say that last year that we're gonna lose?
Yes, they did, but they told them again this year, so
Is that so that?
someday it will happen.
We told you you might.
I know.
Can you put those two numbers up there somehow? I mean, I don't know how you do it, but if you could put the 3.5 and then the 3.5 plus the unused side by side.
Could you just copy
Copy and paste
those
side by
columns over
side.
and then put a different plug number in for the one at a time?
Just to put the numbers for comparison.
Okay, never. No, let's just write them on a piece. of
Yeah, because my spreadsheet is linked and formulated, so if I change
I see,
anything, it
okay.
sends all of my formulas into a.
So with the voter approval rate,
Oh, Judge, you're gonna be late.
I know.
Just.
I have passed in the order.
Yeah, I can't see that.
I know,
say 732.
I couldn't.
okay, so this one is your voter approval rate.
Okay.
That what we're looking at right now?
Yes, sir.
And then the one with increments is what?
It was
It's like
175.
100,000 something.
It was 175. I don't remember the rest of the numbers.
But still,
Go change it.
I
The
can't,
credit.
I was waiting. Are y'all ready for me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't. I can't do that, I get.
175,876.
So that's an improvement of 400,000,
Oh, no,
700,000.
I mean, 700,000. Yeah.
What did the city go with? Did they go to the voter approval or did they go above the voter approval? Do you remember? It was in the paper.
I don't remember what they did, I don't know what they did.
I can't remember. I think it was above.
Yeah, I thought it was above two.
Yeah,
So do you have to use all the unused increments?
that's what I'm gonna say.
We don't have to use all of them.
So do
So what are?
you know how many you have
the
left?
Range.
I think there's only, it's by that, it looks like probably there's only about maybe 1.5, 2 left. There's not much left.
I mean, like, we could split
That's,
It looks
unused
like
increments and voter approval, so it's between.
1.4 pennies anywhere
just
from there,
go halfway.
0.014 ish,
Just put it at like, 0.37. Take away the 4 100s.
137. We could do that. Right now, if you just give me a little second. So calculate it.
I'm gonna stay in the office next year.
Mhm.
She'll have to do a lifeline call.
Better get a subscription of Zantac or something.
Like a game show.
I just stay away because I can't keep my mouth shut.
But we need information. We need information from as many sources as we can get it.
Okay, give me.
I know, but she has
1 second.
She knows it, I just don't let her do it.
That's what you tell guys that work, you don't know how much you know because they're like, oh, but you've been there so long, you can have that knowledge, it's just.
I just, it overflows.
Sorry, y'all, hang on just a second.
Great, you're doing a great job.
Me, I'm gonna
Don't let the-
redo these. I told you when everything is formulated.
See, they're ordering.
You get there just as it gets to the table. You don't have to drive far, do you?
That, bench warmers.
Oh, where's he going?
Bench
Then
warmers.
you have a full while to wait. You have time.
Oh.
So I say you've got time there. They usually take.
It
a
is
while
a
to get you
business
through
line. With workforce development and a new, I appointed Carl Hatman to the Workforce Development Board. Carl.
That's good.
There we go.
You.
I blew it up a little.
Oh, just now. Oh, now I can see the numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My screen's not readable, but.
I can read without my glasses now.
These don't help because they're just for close up, so.
And everybody's here. So we finished the tax rate, then are we done?
Yes.
All right.
So we'll have another,
Friday.
but would that be a meeting?
That's a regular meeting or a special meeting about the lease here, the main item or main business.
Well, it's, I guess I'm asking for someone from Wayne, someone gonna, is Wayne Rockport gonna be
I
invited?
I have that action item too, where they can come. It's discuss hot things.
Oh my gosh, I think I might have to email this to y'all.
So we're looking at 0.37.
Yeah, it's.
Is that what y'all are calculating, 0.37
I see it's locked up. You can make a little thing with all three
total?
numbers.
I can't.
He's calculating what it would look like at yeah,
That would be
0.37, okay.
Let's do that.
Okay, can I,
Yeah.
work on this and I'll email the document to y'all that will have those 3 rates as just kind of like this sheet.
Be great.
Okay.
All right. Got a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion, I didn't hear it.
Commissioner-
Cheney, Commissioner Cheney.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo, Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye. Adjourn, thank you.
Yeah, Tracy texted me to remind you, you had lunch appointment.